I'm going to start practicing for my talk, and I would just like to go through the outline and I guess do a little bit of brainstorming on exactly what I want to talk about. Okay, let's do a dry run here. For the first 5 minutes, I'll do a self introduction. To hook them in, I will talk about a quote by Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban on TV said this quote: Businesses, there are only two types of businesses: those who are great at AI and those who are not. And the ones that aren't good at AI, they will fail. End of story. And this includes employee and business owners alike. Now, why is this something that I brought up? It's because I have a personal experience. I was working as a consultant in a corporate position. During my time there, I started tinkering with tools like ChatGPT. That's how we all got started, right? And then I realized I could use ChatGPT to help me write documentation. And also I could use it to learn how to program. I dipped my toes into programming by using Microsoft Power Automate. This is a low-code solution specifically on the Microsoft Power Platform ecosystem. And that was the first time I was able to realize that as a business, non-tech person, I'm actually able to create solutions and automations with just me and an AI assistant that helps me debug. And that's when I discovered the power of AI. It is able to act as your assistant, and you can learn a lot from just chatting with it and doing a problem solving session together. I've since discovered many new AI tools that are either sold as software as a service, such as Fireflies, a very, very good solution used to record calls, give you summary items and action items for the call, and get this, you can actually send Firefly agents to a meeting that you can't make, and it will come back to you with summary notes and action items. There are some other tools that I use, such as I'm actually coming up blank here because a lot of tools have AI as part of it, but not really the main function. For example, Notion. Notion has AI. Airtable. Airtable has AI. But anyways, a tool that I really fell in love with would be Make.com. I think of Make.com as a more generalized version of Microsoft Power Platform, Microsoft Power Automate, excuse me. But the true advantage here is that, number one, of course, it has more native integration with a lot of other apps. Power Automate has a good amount too, but most of them are premium. But the more important thing is Make.com natively allows us to connect with large language models like OpenAI's ChatGPT, as well as Anthropic's Claude. And by allowing the user to directly connect through the backend with tools like ChatGPT and Claude, we are able to do much, much more than just using it in the interface that everyone is familiar with, the web interface that you just chat with. You can do a lot of cool things that I'm about to share in the upcoming case studies. So that's a little bit about me and the AI tools that I use. And I really want to drive home this message that if you're a small business owner or you're a tech worker or really you're in any industry that uses computer, if you're not using AI in some part of your work, you're leaving productivity, you're leaving money, you're leaving time on the table. And eventually, everyone else around you will have gotten so good at AI that you will be left in the dust. And that's the message that I want to talk about. Okay, let's talk about the 3 case studies that I will present during this talk. Let's look at case study number 1. Email automation for business coach. This was my first project into the AI automation world. The problem statement is I have a client who is a business coach, and she does a lot of her business, including her coaching sessions, through email. It's her primary form of communication with her clients. And because of this, she needed a very clean inbox and also have a way to categorize her coaching related emails in a very clear and easy to understand way. Currently, what she's doing is manually transferring emails, downloading them, and then inputting that into OneNote. After the email is downloaded and inputted into OneNote, she then has to manually sift through the emails. She has to order them chronologically and order them by client name. It was a very manual process that would take her maybe about an hour a day to accomplish. What we were able to do, this was my first solution, so I hacked together a solution with multiple technology stacks available to me. Because she was in the Microsoft ecosystem already, we decided to use Power Automate to do the initial automation of downloading her emails and parsing the email with specific information, like separating out the subject, the body, the sender, when is it sent, data like that. And we outputted that into a SharePoint list, which is basically a spreadsheet, but it lives on the cloud. It's optimized for Microsoft Power Automate. Okay, so we were able to output the data into this SharePoint list. But while I was working on this project, I thought to myself, what more can we do? And that's when it hit me. There are a couple problems here when I was going through this project. The first problem is when we use Power Automate to get the email out, it would take the entire chain. What we want is only the top email of that email chain, just the reply. Otherwise, it gets very messy and it's hard to actually categorize and see what's going on. And I thought to myself, okay, we could use make.com here to actually connect with large language model like ChatGPT and then prompt ChatGPT to only take the most recent email, train it with some sample data, and it was able to help us output exactly what we wanted, just the latest body. It was also able to extract the name of the sender from the email sent. So you could think of a case where, let's say my email is peter.chen22@gmail.com. It is easily able to parse that email and figure out, okay, the name of the sender is Peter Chen. You could think of scenarios where people could have different patterns of names with different numbers and different strings, different symbols. But with AI, we are able to parse out that name with much higher accuracy than any other method. Okay, so that's number 2, getting the name from the sender. And the last thing that we were able to do is analyze the intent of the email. So by feeding the large language model the body, we're able to categorize what kind of email this actually is. So, for example, let's say the email said something like, hey, I'd like to book an appointment. Well, that's very obvious. It's for an appointment booking, and we can categorize it as such. The next email might come in, and it might say, oh, nice weather we're having today. And we can just ignore that and deprioritize and say that's just miscellaneous. And maybe we have a question like, how did you think of my proposal? Okay, maybe that's asking a question, and we can categorize that and maybe triage that for higher priority. Now, I think you get the idea here. Being able to automate the email downloading, the email sorting, as well as provide valuable insight on what the email is actually saying before they have to read through it, save this coach 1 hour every day. And if we just do a rough revenue calculation, I think she charges her client about $100 an hour. So every week, this automation is saving her $500. Okay, let's jump into our next case study, which is a logistics firm. What's happening here is we have a logistics firm, and it is accepting delivery orders from one of their clients. The client would send an email and attach a PDF as a delivery order. The current process goes something like this. Email gets sent in. We have an employee manually sift through the email, figure out the ones that are relevant, download the attachments manually, and then read the PDF, and then input the data from the PDF into a spreadsheet. And then, because of the way that their system works, it's just a bunch of spreadsheets, so they're just entering data from one spreadsheet to the next to the next. There's not really a super robust system to set this up. And that was the whole problem, and I thought, okay, this is one of my friend, and he works at this company. And I thought, okay, that in of itself is a pretty big project to scope out. Why don't we start from just the beginning, and let's take a look at what we can do. So I decided to work on the email download portion of that workflow. So it goes something like this. When you have an order come in, there are many scenarios. Okay, these are all the business rules that are applicable to this specific interaction between this client of theirs and them. And you could imagine that this process could be a bit different because they're serving different clients and they don't really have a standardized system in place to handle and make all the clients go through the same journey. So basically, we're accommodating for a lot of BS here, for lack of a better term. But it was a very interesting problem to solve. Okay. So when delivery comes in, let's say that's a new one. Okay, we store that into our folder. And then we would have revisions. How we determine a revision is we can do that by matching the request number, which is basically a unique ID. And if we see that the request number is the same, then immediately we know it's in a revision. Now here comes the tricky part though. Sometimes a revision could come in and it would be the wrong revision. So if we had revision 2 in our folder and a revision 1 came in, we would need to reject that. That's a tricky part of the automation that we needed AI to solve. And there are other little bits and pieces here that all require AI to help us, like parsing a PDF and figuring out exactly what information goes where. Very difficult to do traditionally. And just some other logic, like if you read cancel in the PDF, please output cancel so that we can use that to determine cancellation. Just a lot of business rules like that. And the last case study is a community project. Or is it? I think I'll end it here. This was just to get me to speak about this talk. I mean, it's 30 minutes. This is my first talk ever that is that long. And to be completely honest, I don't really know how to make this that interesting other than doing a live demo of building an automation for the majority of it. And I think that would actually be more interesting to me and perhaps my audience than just me talking about case studies. I actually want to put the automation in front of them and then maybe even run it through to show them exactly what it's doing. I think that would be very interesting. But anyways, that's what I'm gonna do actually. Now that I think about it, I will talk a little bit, maybe put a couple slides up, but then I will actually show some real automation running in Make.com. I think that would be interesting. Okay, that's cool. That's it, I guess.